Hello everyone and welcome to another beer review. So today we're on a stout, and it's not a craft stout, it's probably a more traditional stout. So we're on Black Cab Stout from Fuller's, the London Brewery at the Chiswick Roundabout. There we go. So it's brewed beside the Thames. I'm trying to think. Now the Thames meanders through, does it go past the Fuller's Brewery at the Chiswick Roundabout? I might do. I'm trying to remember. I don't recall it. Round about that area, but so of course the Black Cab Stout, and there's a bit of spirit at the back. It's 4.5%. It's a 500ml bottle. It's under £2. I bought it for the Christmas kind of testing because I brought a few different beers to try, and yeah. So it's named in honour of the icon of the capital. This aromatic dark beer will transport you to the days when porters and stouts were Londoners' drink of choice. This style of stout delivers a rich, full flavour from chocolate malts in the brew, balanced by the fuggle and golden hops, creating a satisfying bitterness. Well, there you go, it's ticking all the boxes. And if I think at the time when Londoners were really into their stouts and their porters and everything else, they weren't called cabs then, because they were carriages, and most of them would have been hansoms. So you had black hansoms, and I'm trying to remember what they used to call the bigger ones, because the standard two-seaters were hansoms, and the four-seater carriages, I'm trying to remember what they called them again. Name escapes me. So yes, they wouldn't have really called them cabs. So yes, around about the old Victorian times and things like that, their most popular cab was in a hansom. There you go. Which is interesting, because down in Devon and Cornwall, that's one of the kind of things everybody says. Oh, you say lovers down here, but they also say hansoms. Alright, hansom, alright, poppet and all that type of stuff. So it's not a case of alright my lovers, it's alright hansoms. Alright me hansom. So there we go. So that's how they talk down here, and that's what they used to call the cabs in Victorian times when they were pulled by a horse. Right, so enough of this twaddle. Let's crack it open. Woohoo! And see how it pours. Again, look, we're back in this glass because I'm still missing a glass. I'm actually 2 glasses down, actually. Buggers. I don't know what they've been up to in this place. But somebody keeps nicking my glasses, and now we've lost 2. I think one's definitely broken. But I don't know where the third one of the 4's gone. Well, I'm getting aromatics. I'm getting smells here, ladies and gentlemen, and it's not me. So let's do this for the old Instagram. There we go. Oh yes, there we go. Getting them dark roasted malts. Getting slight bitterness. Slight kind of molasses smells. But yeah, dark roasted malts, front and centre. That's what you're getting. And as you can see, there's a little bit of a tanned head there as well. I like to see it looks quite nice. So let's see what it tastes like. Well, there we go. Now, we've done quite a lot of Guinness recently. We've done the Guinness kind of draft in the can. We've done Guinness Original Extra Stout in the bottle. We've done the Guinness kind of draft zero kind of alcohol-free version. Now, one of the things I said was about Guinness, even though how well it's marketed, and the reason why I brought it up, because officially in the month of January Guinness became the UK's best-selling beer. Now, I know it's heavily advertised and all across the world, lots of places know Guinness and it's famous for this, that, and the other. And of course, it's all down to a lot of really good advertisement. I mean, when I was studying in my younger days, I had friends who were doing marketing and advertisement when they were doing their studies, and Guinness was always the kind of one of the popular examples of marketing and how to promote products and things like that. So it was, and how kind of thought provoking, and of course the Rutger Hauer kind of era of Guinness adverts and things like that. So promotion of a product and Guinness seem to go hand in hand. But strangely enough, even with all that promotion and everything else, this is the first time in its history that Guinness has actually been the best selling beer in the UK. It's never had that before. But in January 2023, it achieved that. So there you go. So I brought that up to say that it's the best selling beer, and it is a stout, and it's probably one of the most famous stouts, and it's absolutely bland. And then you think, well, am I being hard or harsh on it? Because some people obviously have watched my review saying, well, you're saying it's bland and maybe it's a bit harsh and everything else. And then you taste something like this and you're thinking, no, no, I was right. It's absolutely bland. Guinness is bland compared to something like this. And this is when I said was, as you start to kind of try different beers and you expand out, when you kind of realise that the beers that are heavily promoted and everything else turn out to be something they're not, or lacking or whatever. And this is what I discovered from what I used to drink in my younger days. And then you start to kind of try new things. I mean, growing up where I grew up and drinking the kind of popular brews there, I'm thinking, yeah, they're okay, they're quite nice and da-da-da, and they're ticking the boxes and la-di-da-di-da. And then you move away and you start to kind of experience other options and things like that, and you start to kind of realise, well, what I was drinking back home was kind of lacking. Then that becomes a problem, because once you've tasted some good stuff out in the pubs in other places like Glasgow, my biggest shock first of all was moving to Glasgow and then discovering Drivers Heavy and Drivers Pubs, and I was sitting there thinking, well, the heavy I used to drink back home in the southwest of Scotland, it's like piss water compared to this stuff. And then of course you're trying other things as well. And of course my sisters, they were living down in England at this point, especially my older sister, and I used to go down and visit her. And then of course her husband was buying obviously more English ales and beers, and I think that kind of got me into the kind of towards the kind of English beers as well. And he used to buy cases, her husband used to buy cases of is it Webster's Bitter from Button-on-Trent, and was it a bitter? I think it was Webster's Bitter. Was that it was a low alcohol kind of beer. It wasn't particularly strong. I think it was roughly about either just under 4% or just around about the 4% mark. And I liked that. I thought it was quite easy drinking. And it was a good session beer, and yeah, I could drink Webster's till the cow come home. But there was more flavour even in that kind of lower alcohol Webster's compared to what I was drinking, like the equivalent of 10, 70 or 80 shilling back in my hometown and things like that. You're thinking, nah, you know, seriously a load of piss. So Guinness kind of fell into that kind of category. You thought, well, Guinness is the stout, so you kind of think, well, it's so well kind of promoted and everything else. You think, well, this is a kind of standard stout. This is what we expect. Stout should be like this. And then you eventually start trying different stouts throughout the years, and you start realising, Christ, this has got a hell of a lot more flavour than Guinness. And then alarm bells start ringing, you thinking, Guinness really doesn't have that much flavour at all. So there you go. So let's tell you what this tastes of. Okay. Starts off with that lovely kind of really dark roasted malts and a little bit of grain at the start of the mouth. That's what you're getting there. Moves on to the kind of mid-tongue. And you just get little accents of sweetness at the start of the mid-tongue. You've still got the malty flavours, they're slightly kind of dying down a wee bit. The grain's kind of building up. And you're just getting a kind of ever so slight light kind of accents of chocolate, little maybe hints of coffee, but also get maybe just a tiny little accents of maybe a slight flawlessness in there. But as it moves along that kind of mid-tongue, you're just getting that little bit of sweetness now starting to appear. So it's as if like it's taken a while to kind of draw the sweetness out of the malt, and you're getting it really kind of forming kind of in the middle of the mid-tongue, and it just sits there, which is nice because when you start getting into the real kind of bitterness in the aftertaste, and I'm not saying it's bitter, but there is obviously, because of the style of beer, there is going to be a kind of slightly chocolatey, slightly coffee kind of bitterness in the aftertaste. But that sweetness is now there and it's still present in the aftertaste. It just gives that little bit of balance. And the flavours are strong enough and defined enough that you can identify them quite easily. You're not really have to think, what flavour is that? The flavours are there and they're identifiable. But they're not overpowering, but they're way ahead of the flavours you get in Guinness. And then of course you get that really nice finish. I've always found that with Guinness it's a watery finish, it's like a kind of a non-event, whereas this is the exact opposite. This is telling you that, hey, we're about to finish up here. I want to give you a little bit more before we go. And that what makes a difference. And it's just plenty of flavour from start to finish that you just don't get. And the reason why I'm comparing it to Guinness is just because, like I said, Guinness is very popular. It's well promoted, heavily advertised. People seem to think that Guinness is the epitome of stout, and it isn't. It's probably what Guinness does for spreading the name of stout is good. What Guinness delivers in actually drinkability of stout is the exact opposite. It doesn't do you any favours, because if you basically drink Guinness and then you taste a real stout, then you probably realise I've been drinking piss, basically. And I'm talking about what we get in the draft and they're extra cold and all this other nonsense. This is just a good kind of traditional stout. And yeah, good aftertaste, good chocolatey tones and slightly coffee bitterness, coffee grounds. It's not espresso bitterness, it's that kind of, maybe slightly what we call kind of the camp coffee bitterness, that kind of slightly kind of chicory kind of sensation to it. And yeah, because camp coffee used to be used a lot in baking, so a lot of kind of coffee sponges and things that basically have coffee flavours, they would use camp coffee, and it does bring that little bit of kind of bitterness even through all that kind of sweetness into the cakes. And this is what you're getting here as well. That's why I like to refer to it as slightly camp coffee rather than kind of espressos or more kind of coffee grounds, whereas it just adds that little level of bitterness through the sweetness and all the other flavours. And that's what you slightly get with this as well. But there's a balance, and that's why no point having bitterness if there isn't that kind of little sweetness there to give you the balance. And this is the problem, you can have too much bitterness or too much sweetness. You need to have that balance, especially in the aftertaste, because that's the stuff that lingers. That's the thing that basically, with beer, your aftertaste is your big incentive to take another drink. If your aftertaste is bad and it's lingering, you're less likely to want to take another drink. And the whole point is, with beer, and especially beer manufacturing and brewing, is It's a business. They want you to take another drink. You take another drink, you open another bottle or a can, and it goes on that way. So there's that incentive. The more you drink, the more they sell. That's what it comes down to. And it's a big part of that. It's a kind of psychology that if you like the last couple of flavours of the aftertaste, that's your incentive to pick the glass up quite quickly and take another sip. And that's what you get with the flavour within this. So you're getting that good flavour. You're getting the nice profiles. You're getting that nice finish in the aftertaste. It's got a nice mouthfeel, and just in general, it's a nice stout. What am I saying? But there's a nice bitterness. So yes, it's a nice stout. So what would I give this stout out of 10? Right, for me it's above average. So it's above a 5. Looking at how the flavour profiles are and just how the mouthfeel is, and as you can see how it's just nicely brewed. I mean, it doesn't pretend to be anything more than what it is. We're going to brew a good stout, and we're going to sell it for a normal price, and we want people to go out and enjoy it. Boxes ticked. There you go. No spiel or wonderful mystical bullshit, or what was the one we did was something to do with innovation and that recently. Oh, this is this innovation nonsense, and oh god, and, vocation nonsense, and all this kind of taglines and bullshit and everything else. No, they've just said, well, what did they say? Brewed beside the Thames since 1845. And what it is, creating a satisfying bitterness. That's it. And it is a satisfying bitterness. But they don't claim it's wonderful or mystical or basically your genitals are going to get bigger or you're going to win the lottery or it's going to make you a far better person than you were yesterday. It's just like, we want to make a good traditional beer, and I hope you enjoy it. So on that basis, what would I give it? I was thinking of a 7, but I think it should be more than that. I think I'm probably being a bit unfair, to be totally honest. I think it needs a bit more than that. It is nice, and as you can see, it's quite easy to drink, but it's just nice. And every time you take a sip, you're just replenishing all the flavours. The flavours aren't kind of, as my mouth is now acclimatised to this, and the flavours are still as punchy as it was when I had the first couple of sips. So it doesn't kind of detract after your mouth kind of gets acclimatised. So I'm kind of toying between a 7.5 and an 8 on this, because I'm looking at it, and I tried a few craft stouts, ones with coconuts, and I had that layer cake from Brewdog that was absolutely bloody dreadful. And then of course you've got the blandness. I mean, going from Guinness, what it has done, if you compare it to the kind of craft versions of stout, then less is more. So that's definitely in Guinness's favour, because it doesn't taste of all these crazy flavours that you're getting with some of these kind of craft stouts. Then it's actually puts it further up the kind of scale in my book, because even though it's bland, less is more compared to some of the awful flavours that you're finding in stouts nowadays. So on that basis, how bad some of them, I mean, I'll be total, some of them stouts were just bloody dreadful, and how bland the Guinness is and everything else, then yeah, I was going to maybe say 7.5. I'm not, I'm going to give it an 8. I'm going to give it an 8. If you want a stout if you basically are a Guinness drinker or something like that, and you want to have a kind of a stout that's kind of more realistic of what stouts really should be, And I'm not saying that this is the epitome, but it's a very good standard of stout for flavour and balance and everything else. And a good stout should be having these types of flavours and that type of balance. Then I would say this is an 8, and I would recommend it. And I think there's a guy, he's a YouTuber that goes about trying Guinness in different pubs in different places all around the UK, and I think he's done it in Europe, and I think he's done it in America and everything else and all that. And I think when he's ready to try a proper stout, then this is a good one to go and start with, and there's plenty of others to try as well that are good ones, and give him an idea of what stout really should be. And or maybe if he wants, you can go back to Ireland where he's from, and he can try some of the kind of more traditional stouts over there that aren't Guinness, that don't have the nitrogen pores and everything else as a gimmick. In fact, even a good traditional Beamish would be a good one for him to try, and just to kind of open up his eyes that stouts are supposed to have flavour and bags of it, and unfortunately Guinness doesn't give you that. So if you think Guinness is the epitome of stout, then you need to go out there and experience the world, because you're in for a shock, because Guinness just doesn't deliver on that basis, doesn't deliver on flavour or anything else. That's why it has to be heavily marketed and has all these gimmicks. So if you want a real stout, then this is one of them. So yeah, 8 out of 10. I would definitely recommend it. It's a good standard to start with, and it's a good one to enjoy any time of the year. So yes, under £2 a bottle, 4.5%, 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Cheers, and bye for now.